Good afternoon and welcome to the OPT Stage 2 information session. My name is Emily and I'm an International Student Advisor at ISPO. We are going to discuss how to compile and mail your OPT application. On your screen, you should see the home page of the International Students and Programs Office. You can always find this webpage by typing istudents.ucsc.edu into your browser. There are a few ways to navigate to the OPT webpage. You can always select Working in the Advising drop-down menu here, or you can scroll down the home page and select Working in the United States. Let's select Working in the Advising drop-down menu. You will come to the Working landing page on your screen, which gives you a few options for the type of work you want to learn more about. Select the option for working after graduating. You will then come to the landing page for the types of work authorizations available to UCSD students on the F1 visa and J1 visa. OPT is the work authorization available for students on the F1 visa. Please select F1 post-completion optional practical training. Next, you will see three options: initial 12-month OPT, 24-month STEM OPT extension, and CAP-GAP extension for H-1B visa applicants. We will be discussing the process for the initial 12-month OPT application. Even if you are in a STEM field, you will not be applying for the 24-month STEM extension at this time. The 24-month STEM extension is an application that eligible students can submit in their final 3 months of the initial 12-month OPT. Think of it this way: the 24-month STEM OPT application is an extension, so you must apply and be approved for the 12-month OPT in order to have something to extend. So let's select initial 12-month OPT. As you can see, ISPO has broken the OPT timeline into 3 stages. Stage 1 discusses how to request the OPT I-20 from ISPO. Stage 2 discusses how to compile an OPT application and mail the application to USCIS. Stage 3 discusses how to maintain your F1 status while your OPT application is pending with USCIS, and how to maintain your F1 status once your OPT application is approved. In this webinar, we will only address Stage 2. Typically, Stage 2 is an in-person workshop. I highly recommend attending the in-person Stage 2 workshop. When you attend, remember to bring all of your completed documents so you can participate in a document self-check while the presenter is reviewing the application requirements. Okay, so let's get started. We will start with Step 1, compile your OPT application. Both the OPT application guide and the Form I-765 guide can always be found here on ISPO's OPT webpage. This allows you to reference all the information you need to successfully compile an OPT application day or night. I'm going to open the OPT application guide now. The bottom right shows when the guide was last updated. ISPO will update the guide whenever new guidance comes from USCIS, so you always know that this guide is up to date and accurate. Here is the list of all required documents for a complete OPT application. However, please note that depending on your specific case, you may need to include additional documents. We will discuss this in more detail in the I-765 guide. Right now, we will go through each of these required documents. The G1145 is an optional form that you can include in your OPT application. The form requests that USCIS send the applicant a text or email once the application has been received. Please note that whether you include the G1145 form in your application or not, USCIS will still send the receipt notice in the mail. And as a reminder, USCIS will send you 3 documents in the mail: the receipt notice to alert you that your application has been received, the approval notice to alert you that your OPT application has been approved, and the EAD or employment authorization document, which you need in hand to begin employment. The email or text you receive as a result of submitting the G1145 form does not take the place of any of these documents. However, you will receive the email or text within 1 week, whereas you might be waiting 2 to 4 weeks to receive the receipt notice in the mail. The OPT application requires a $410 filing fee. This can be a personal check, a money order, or a cashier's check. The name and address in the top left does not need to match the name of the applicant, nor does it need to be a current address. For example, if you do not have a personal check but a friend does, your friend could write a check to pay the $410 filing fee, and you could pay your friend back. The check should be made payable to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and you can write in the memo or for section that it is for the I-765 OPT application. ISPO also recommends that you write your CVIS number somewhere on the front of the check in case it gets separated from your OPT application. The Form I-765 is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services application for employment authorization. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services is also called USCIS for short. ISPO has created a separate guide for this form, so let's jump into it. Back on the ISPO webpage, you can select Form I-765 Guide. Here is the Form I-765 Guide. USCIS changed the I-765 from 10 pages to 7 pages in 2018 and also created a 27-page instruction guide. ISPO staff reviewed USCIS's 27-page instruction guide and created this guide to better assist UCSD students. However, it is still highly recommended that you read the USCIS instruction guide in addition to the ISPO guide. The link can be found here. There are 4 important things to remember. First, you must fill out the application clearly. The form is mostly form fillable, but not all sections can be typed in. You can either handwrite the entire document in black ink or handwrite some and type some. Just make sure the ink is always black and the writing is legible. Second, the new Form I-765 has a Part 6, which is a catch-all for any additional information that wasn't covered in the rest of the application questions. Remember how I said that the list of required documents for an OPT application might not be all the documents you need to include in your application depending on your case? This is where Part 6 comes in. Depending on your response to some questions in the Form I-765, you may have additional information to disclose, which will be done in Part 6. And you may also need to include evidence to support the information you disclose. This evidence might be a photocopy of a previous passport, for example. ISPO staff have added this eye icon anywhere on the Form I-765 where you might need to disclose additional information and include additional evidence. Third, you must disclose any previous employment authorizations. This means if you've ever had CPT or OPT previously, you must disclose this information in Part 6 and include evidence, which is likely in the form of a CPT I-20 photocopy or a photocopy of a previous EAD card. At the end of the form, I will review some examples of how to fill out Part 6 and how to include additional evidence. And then fourth, every question must be filled out. If an answer does not apply to you, you must write NA in the text box or none in the numerical box. All right, so let's get started on the actual form. The I-765 form is used for many applications in addition to the OPT application, so it is very important that you follow these instructions closely. Part 1, 1A, mark initial permission to accept employment. Part 2, 1A, write your legal name exactly as it is written and spaced in your passport. If you do not have a given name, a family name, or a middle name, write NA. 2A, if you have had another legal name, you will disclose them here. This means if you legally changed your name and had a previous name on a passport, visa, driver's license, or another government-issued document, you would need to write down the name here. Also, see the eye icon? If you do write a previously used legal name here, you should also add it to Part 6 and include evidence. If you have not previously had another legal name, write NA. Part 2 is addresses. This is one of the most important parts on the form. As you can see, there is a U.S. mailing address and a U.S. physical address. Remember how I said that you will receive 3 documents from USCIS? Those 3 documents are the receipt notice, the approval notice, and the EAD card. All of these 3 documents will be mailed to the address you write in U.S. mailing address. This is an address where you will be living for the next 3 to 5 months. USCIS typically takes 90 days to process an EAD card. However, if the processing time goes up, which does happen during busier seasons, you need to make sure you are still at the listed address in order to receive these documents. Therefore, if you know where you will be living for the next 3 to 5 months, meaning your name is on the lease and on the mailbox of that mailing address, you will write the address in U.S. mailing address and will write NA in the in care of, since the address you are writing is your own address. If you do not know where you will be living for the next 3 to 5 months, you can list a friend or family member's name and address to receive the documents for you. However, this cannot be an on-campus housing address like graduate housing. If you have a friend or family member who lives in the U.S. and has a mailing address where they will be living for the next 3 to 5 months, write their name in the in care of section. This is giving that individual permission to accept government documents on your behalf. You will then write their exact mailing address. Whether you write your own address or a friend or family member's address, be sure you include the full zip code. You can use the link offered on the left in the red box to check the extra 4 digits of your zip code. Also, please note that USCIS mail cannot be forwarded. This means that if you write your own address on the Form I-765 and then you move, but you request the U.S. Postal Service to forward all of your mail will be forwarded to your new location, except the USCIS documents. This government mail cannot be forwarded. Question 6 asks if your current mailing address and your U.S. mailing address are the same. If they are the same, then you will mark yes and will fill in N/A for all of the physical address sections. If you mark no, then you will need to fill in all of the physical address sections accordingly. The physical address is where you are living at this very moment. 8 and 9 are both none, since you do not have either of these numbers. Please answer your gender accordingly. As of now, this document only offers 2 options. Please answer your marital status. 12 asks if you have previously filed a Form I-765. This question has an eye icon. If you previously applied for OPT, then you would answer yes. 13A asks if you have been issued a Social Security card. Individuals can only receive 1 Social Security number in a lifetime. This section was added to the Form I-765 to allow students who do not have a Social Security number to request it at the same time as they request the EAD card, and to allow students who have been issued a Social Security number to receive a reprinted card if they've lost their card. You will fill this section out accordingly. 18A and 18B asks for your country of citizenship. If you are a dual citizen, please pay attention to the eye icon. Answer your place of birth accordingly, and be sure to answer the date of birth with month, day, year. 21A asks for your I-94 number. You can look this up through the CBP website. This is also a document that is required in your OPT application, so I will discuss it later on. 21B asks for your most recently issued passport number. There is an eye icon here. If you have been issued a new passport recently and have not traveled on it, this means that the passport number of your current passport is likely different than the passport number connected to your I-94 and most recent F-1 visa. Answer 21D and 21E accordingly. 22 can be found on your I-94, and 23 can be found on your travel history, which you get to through your I-94. There is an eye icon here. If your most recent date of entry or your most recent place of entry, as recorded on your I-94 and travel history, is not accurate, please contact an ISPO advisor. You must have this corrected before applying for OPT. 24 asks for the status of your last arrival to the U.S., which should be F1 or F1 student. 25 asks for your current immigration status, which should also be F1 or F1 student. 26 asks for your current CVIS ID, which is found on the top left of your I-20. This should have been the same number for your entire academic program. If you took an extended leave from UCSD, received an academic suspension or disqualification, or failed to maintain your F1 status, it is possible you have had more than one CVIS ID while at UCSD. If you participated in another academic program prior to UCSD in an F1 or J1 status, it is possible you received another CVIS ID. See the I icon. If you have ever had a different CVIS ID than the CVIS ID you currently have, you will need to disclose this information. 27 asks for the eligibility category, which means it is asking what you are applying for. You are applying for post-completion OPT, which is the initial 12 months of OPT. The eligibility code for post-completion OPT is C3B. Questions 28 to 31B do not apply to you. You will answer N/A or none. If you are in a STEM field, you are not applying for the STEM OPT extension yet. If you are in a STEM field, you are eligible to apply for a STEM OPT extension during the last 3 months of your initial OPT. The STEM OPT application is a different eligibility category. Part 3, select 1A. Complete the applicant's contact information. You will hand sign and date. You do not have an interpreter, so all of the Part 4 will be NA. And you do not have a preparer, so all of Part 5 will also be NA. So now we are at Part 6. ISPO staff added examples of the most common scenarios we see with UCSD students. Some of these scenarios for adding to Part 6 might apply to you and some may not. If none of these scenarios apply to you, you will have no reason to add additional information to Part 6. You will fill out every section with N/A. I will go over a couple examples of reasons you may need to include information in Part 6 and additional information. First, please read the Part 6 instructions up here. One example is if you have ever been approved for CPT. This is example C. You must write what page, part, and item number you are referring to. In this case, you are referring to page 3, part 2, and item 26, which asks for your current CVIS ID. You will write the CVIS ID you had when you participated in CPT, the academic level you were in during your CPT, the CPT authorized dates, and you will make a note of what type of evidence you are including. Remember, the instructions say that on all evidence, you must write the page number, part number, and item number the evidence is referring to. Another example is if your most recently issued passport is not the passport you last used to enter the U.S. This is example E. You must write page 3, part 2, item 21B, which refers to the passport number on your most recently issued passport. You will need to write an explanation of why you have two passports. Evidence you include will likely be a copy of your old and your new passport biography pages. Please review all of these examples in case any of them apply to you, and consider if there is any additional information you should add to Part 6. Please note, we have 2 pages of examples, so be sure you check both of them. Okay, so we're going back now to the OPT application guide, which I had opened previously. As a reminder, we went over what a full application looks like. We discussed the G1145 form, the $410 filing fee, and the I-765 form. Next, we will discuss the OPT I-20. You must include a photocopy, not the original, of your OPT I-20. Be sure you include all 3 pages. Sign and date the first page. You are already familiar with a 5-month window during which USCIS must receive your OPT application. As a reminder, USCIS must receive OPT applications no more than 90 days before a program end date and no more than 60 days after a program end date. In addition to these application requirements, once you receive the OPT I-20, a new application requirement is added. USCIS must also receive your complete OPT application within 30 days of the date issued on the first page of your OPT I-20. Therefore, it is important to mail your OPT application soon after receiving the OPT I-20. A photocopy of your current passport biography page is required in your OPT application. USCIS has not offered guidance as to whether this must be in color or black and white, so either is fine. Also include a photocopy of your current F1 visa. Similarly, USCIS has not offered guidance as to whether this must be in color or black and white, so either is fine. It is okay if your visa is expired. The I-94 is your travel and re-entry document. You will likely have an electronic version of the I-94 unless you haven't traveled since before April 2013. Be sure you include the copy of the I-94 and not the travel history page. The travel history page is not required as a document in the OPT application. The two passport photos follow the same specifications as a typical passport photo required for a passport renewal. Please follow the guidance on the U.S. Department of State webpage. ISPO recommends printing your name and CUS ID on the page of the photos in case they are accidentally separated from your application. That completes the OPT application guide, so let's go back to the OPT webpage. We are finished with step 1. Step 2 details where to mail your OPT application. As a reminder, USCIS must receive your complete OPT application within 30 days of the date the OPT I-20 was issued and within your 5-month eligibility window. Your OPT application must be mailed to USCIS from within the U.S. USCIS has 2 lockboxes. One is in Arizona and one is in Texas. You will mail your OPT application to the correct lockbox. The lockbox will issue a receipt number to your application, and then the lockbox will send your application to a USCIS service center to be reviewed and adjudicated. The lockbox you send your application to depends on what address you listed on the Form I-765 mailing address section. So if your mailing address, which is what you put in Part 2, 5A through 5E on your Form I-765 is in California, you will mail to the Arizona lockbox. There are 2 different addresses depending on if you are sending using regular U.S. postal delivery or if you are using express mail delivery. If your mailing address on your Form I-765 is outside of California, click on the link provided to check which lockbox you should send your application to. I'm clicking on the link here and opening this other window. As you can see, the United States are split up into 2 sections. If your mailing address is in, for example, Missouri, you will mail your OPT application to the Arizona lockbox. If your mailing address is in New York, you will mail your OPT application to Texas. All right, so you've mailed off your OPT application. What's next? It's very important that you understand how to continue maintaining your F1 visa status while your OPT application is pending with USCIS and how to maintain your F1 visa status once your OPT application is approved. All of this information can be found under Stage 3, Maintaining F1 OPT Status. You can also watch the pre-recorded webinar or attend a live webinar. Thank you for attending the Stage 2 information session.
Watch more webinars and attend in-person workshops by visiting iwebinars.ucsd.edu.